Dear all, since the inaugural is still going on, it is a bit delayed. That is why the session is a bit delayed. We'll start in 5 minutes, sir.
For sure, 50.
Very good afternoon, friends. Welcome you all for the first technical session on green and sustainable solutions for data centers. Before getting into the session, our sincere apologies. The inaugural session has got delayed a bit. That is the reason we joined a little late. So I hope we can continue with our session. This session has got 4 presentations. The first presentation is from Indian Green Building Council. I will be making the presentation. It is all about IGBC green data centers. Then we have Mr. Vivek Dahiya, who is a Managing Director, Logistics and Industrial, Cushman & Wakefield Private Limited. We have Mr. Sanjay Motwani, Business Head, Legrand Data Center Solutions. And we also have Mr. Suresh Kumar Rathod. I understand Mr. Suresh Kumar Rathod is yet to join. So we have 4 presentations. What I would do is I would first go ahead with the IGBC Green Data Centers presentation. Then I would request one by one the rest of the presenters to make their presentations. I hope my screen is visible, and then may I request the IT team to confirm is my screen visible, and may I go ahead with the presentation.
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible, sir. And
yeah.
You are audible, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Friends, the objective of this presentation is to present about the IGBC green data centers. When we talk about IGBC green data centers, this is all about a rating tool which has been used for facilitating implementation of green measures in Indian data centers. So we are planning to highlight the opportunities here. Before getting into the presentation, I just thought of sharing a brief about the Indian Green Building Council. The Indian Green Building Council is formed by CII in the year 2001, and our vision is to enable sustainable built environment for all. With this vision, we started promoting the concept of green in the buildings and the built environment in the country. And also, our vision is India to become one of the global leaders in sustainable built environment by the year 2025. With these 2 aspects, we started promoting the green building concepts. Our own center, before even start preaching the green building concepts, we thought of practicing first. So we built our own building, the Green Business Center, in the as a first green building in the country. In fact, that is the first green building, the platinum rated building in the country, but it is only about, say, 20,000 square feet. From here, we started promoting the concept of green building. It has taken various shapes and size. Variety of buildings, they started adopting the green building concepts. Say it is a commercial building or residential building or infrastructure projects or even data centers of late. Okay, all these buildings, they started adopting the concepts. As on date, we have more than about 6,100 projects implementing the green measures. And in terms of green building footprint, it is more than about 7.71 billion square feet, which is supposed to be the 2nd largest footprint in the world. So coming back to the data centers, so as I said, one of the major focus areas as part of the green building promotion is the data centers. When we talk about green data centers, what is it all about? So the green data centers, when we look at it, it not only addresses the building as such, it also addresses the IT part of the building. It addresses both IT as well as the non-IT load as part of the whole data centers. This also adopts facilitates the adoption of international standards. When we start working on green data centers, obviously we look at standards in terms of ASHRAE or any other sustainability standards across the world and look at how these features can be implemented as part of this. If you look at the key focus areas, we are looking at the 4 major areas in terms of how are we going to improve the energy efficiency in the data centers, and how are we going to make the data center sustainable by addressing the issues related to the operation and maintenance, the indoor environment quality, not only from the occupants' point of view, the number of employees may be very limited, more from the point of view of the IT equipment, how this indoor environment quality is going to make an impact on the performance of the IT equipment. and also the waste management, the e-waste management, etc. Apart from that, this also addresses the water efficiency when there is a significant water consumption. If you start using the water cool chillers, etc. And facilitates the implementation of the green measures and how to go about in terms of monitoring. These are the unique features of the green data centers, because once you implement the green measures, it is not only about one-time activity. This has to be sustained. So there is a need for monitoring and then sustaining this on a continual basis. What are the benefits of going green in data centers? There are certain tangible benefits as well as intangible benefits. When we talk about tangible benefits, these are all very clearly measurable, and we can very well measure in terms of how much is the reduction in the money terms, how much is the benefit in terms of the money terms as well. Obviously, the first and foremost benefit is in terms of improvement in efficiency. We are talking about improvement in PUE, the power usage effectiveness, and also the increased reliability of the data center. This becomes a very important criteria from the data center point of view. There are, as I said, the reduction in water consumption in terms of water cool chillers, etc. There are many intangible benefits in terms of addressing the e-waste management, the improved indoor environment quality, the green image for the data center, or the organization, and the benchmarking related aspects. These are certain aspects which are very important, but there are efforts in terms of measuring the benefits on account of these intangible aspects as well. I just thought of taking a couple of features and then see how this is going to benefit the Indian data centers. So for an example, when we talk about the green data centers, the energy performance has been taken into consideration significantly. The intent here is to optimize the energy consumption and also to reduce the negative environment impact from the excessive energy use, obviously. So looking at from the energy performance point of view, obviously from the data center point of view, we all know PUE is a very commonly used indicator for measuring the efficiency of the data center. So our objective is to look at how effectively we improve this PUE. We want the energy to be consumed only for the data processing. Any other energy consumption that is happening in the data center, let us try to reduce. We will not be able to eliminate, but let us try to reduce as much as possible so that we are able to maintain the PUE probably closer to 1. That would be the aspiration, but we may not be able to achieve 1, at least as close as possible. Okay, that is, with that objective, we start working on in terms of improving the energy performance. From the operation and maintenance point of view, this is something very, very important from the reliability point of view, as well as from the energy efficiency point of view as well. A lot of importance has been given as part of this. The latest data centers have got a lot of monitoring systems. The real-time performance monitoring systems are in place, whether it is IT-related load or it is a large chillers, the cooling systems, the electrical systems as part of the green data centers. These need to be necessarily monitored closely. When we talk about these monitoring, it is not only about monitoring, it is also about the data analysis and taking the preventive and corrective measures whenever there is a requirement. See, for an example, the rack cooling index. This is something which has been very closely monitored by many of the data centers because we need to maintain the temperature within a very close bandwidth. We call it as Goldilocks, the temperature bandwidth. Within that, we need to maintain any deviation. Obviously, that could be immediately captured and then reported so that the corrective and preventive measures could be taken up. And at the same time, we are also working on in terms of improving the temperature. Those are gone of the days we talk about maintaining the data center at a temperature of about 18 degrees centigrade. Today, we talk about maintaining the data centers more than about 26 degrees centigrade, still maintaining the same kind of reliability. So these kind of systems are being looked at as part of the green data centers. So from the green data centers point of view, we have been facilitating many organizations to implement the green measures. These are some of the organizations with whom IGBC closely work with them in terms of implementing the green measures and enhance their benefits. There are more than about 10 organizations presently we are working with them. It is more from the organization point of view. There are multiple data centers each organization owns. So they implement the green measures across these data centers, and more than about another 15 organizations we work with them also. They are all in the process of implementing the green measures in their data centers. I just thought of highlighting some initiatives from IGBC for facilitating further energy efficiency improvement in the data centers. One is, of course, we closely work with Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, the Department of Energy, US. The main objective here is, to implement the policy measures which are favorable for improving the greater energy efficiency in data centers. So we have been working on various standards for data centers and also user guide for implementing ECBC 2017. Many of you might have noticed during the inaugural session, we have launched the user guide. The user guide has been developed. This gives you an idea what are the measures that could be implemented, and also some of the case studies from the leading data centers across the country who have showcased what are the things they have done to improve their PUE levels, to improve the sustainability of their data centers. And we work very closely with the stakeholders in terms of the spreading awareness about the data center industry. We have an advisory group on this involving all key stakeholders from the industry. And also we found 4 task forces, especially addressing the key aspects of the data center. The very objective of the task force is to work on what are the measures that need to be implemented to improve the performance of these areas. So for an example, the task force on chiller plant is led by Mr. PC Lohia, who is the Vice President of HVAC Reliance Industries Limited. They work on what kind of measures that could be implemented and what are the technologies that are coming up in the market and what are the future trends that the Indian data centers can adopt. So the chiller plant, the task force, they are working on these aspects. We have an electrical system task force led by Mr. Preetham Goyal. He's a senior program manager from Microsoft. They are working on various improvement opportunities in electrical systems associated with the data centers. Room cooling, this is one major area because many a times we work on the chiller plant, but we don't address the end user level, especially the user point. The room cooling is a very, very critical aspect. We have Mr. Raghuvir Singh, the Director Thermal Management from Vertiv Energy Private Limited, leading this initiative. And also, we are not leaving the IT part because this is driven highly by the technology, but still it makes a lot of sense if you can work on this IT part and then reduce the energy consumption there. So there is an IT hardware and management system led by Mr. Vivek Rajendran, Director Software Engineering from Dell. So these 4 task forces are working on this, and then they are working on various, the case study development and coming out with the user guide, etc. We have also done multiple capacity building program amongst the professionals for creating awareness about the green data center initiatives. These many programs we have done in the past with the support of the Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory, and we are also doing on our own. As I said, the user guide has been just launched. It has got the case studies from the leading data centers in India, including Infosys, NetApp, and BSDC, Reliance, etc., etc. So this user guide will certainly facilitate the end users to implement the green measures in their own data centers. So friends, what kind of support IGBC can offer you from the data center point of view for implementing the green measures? Number one, we can carry out the feasibility study and tell you this is where the data center stands in terms of the performance of various aspects, whether it is PUE or it is the measures related to O&M, or in terms of water efficiency or indoor environment quality, etc. We can do the feasibility study and tell you this is where you stand. And these are the measures that could be implemented for improving it further. And second, with respect to the IGBC green data center rating, this is an excellent tool. It gives you a complete framework. Many a times what we do is we work on certain aspects in data center and we may not do that much in other aspects. For an example, data center may focus more on energy efficiency. Probably they may forget about indoor environment quality, or they may forget about how to work on renewable energy related aspects. Whereas this data center rating tool, it gives a comprehensive approach in terms of addressing all aspects of the green data center and helps you in terms of implementing the green measures. Friends, this is how I would like to sum up my presentation. There is an excellent opportunity from the Indian data center point of view to go green and improve the performance. It could be at the design stage itself. It could be at the operation and maintenance, and also improve the branding and green image of the overall organization. IGBC data center rating it's a very good tool for addressing all these aspects holistically, and IGBC would be glad to facilitate the process. The advantage with IGBC is we not only look at a few data centers, we look at many data centers across the country. We look at a variety of data centers, including the co-locations, our own data centers, etc. So we know what are the best practices in variety of data centers. So that accumulated knowledge will certainly help you in terms of improving your own data centers as well. We may not be able to share the names. We will keep all those confidential, but we would be happy to share the best practices and help you in terms of improving the overall performance. So thank you for patient listening. With this, I conclude my presentation. I will go to the next set of speakers. Next, we have Mr. Vivek Dahiya. Mr. Vivek Dahiya is a managing director from Logistics and Industrial Cushman and Wakefield India Private Limited. He is going to present about the sustainable data center expansion in India, a policy level reality check. He has more than 18 years of experience in real estate research, consulting, valuation, transaction experience. He led the business developmental efforts across the country for corporate, retail, industrial, and many other areas. He is one of the leading authorities on Indian real estate. He has advised Indian as well as multinational firms, especially on institutional investors, developers, retailers, government bodies on framing their real estate strategies across the country. Over to you, Mr. Vivek Dahiya. Friends, we will take up the questions at the end of the sessions. I would request you all to note down the questions, and at the end of the sessions, we will have a Q&A session. So over to you, Mr. Vivek Dahiya.
Thank you, Mr. Karthikeyan. Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction and good insights on all the good work that CII and IGBC is doing in this space, besides other asset classes. So, and thank you, CII and IGBC, for this opportunity. While I share my screen, let me just set the agenda for what I hope to share, and I hope you find it interesting. As consultants, Cushman Wakefield is involved in the entire life cycle of the data center asset class. This involves entry strategies, this involves policy level inputs, it involves site search, construction, maintenance, everything. We are real estate consultants, and data center has the real estate element in it. We get involved with our clients in the entire asset class life cycle. So what I want you to share with you today was an exercise that we've done very recently for one of the government bodies who is currently looking at setting up or formulating the data center policy in that particular state. While we were doing that, we contacted all the relevant stakeholders, or most of the relevant stakeholders, both on the developer side and the operator side, to take their inputs with regard to what should be done, what is missing, what good has been done by other state governments, and if somebody wants to go ahead and build a data center policy for their particular location, city, state, what should that incorporate? Now, what we did with the client is separate, but what I wanted to share with this fraternity is essentially what you people have told us, which is collated your inputs. These inputs include a lot of points on power, a lot of points on sustainability. And then at the end, I'm going to talk briefly about the states. So this is an exercise that we've done extremely recently. Most of the people on the operator developer side who are part of this have been contacted. Our team's been in touch with them. And we've tried to bring the juice out of it and share it with you. This is probably like a ready reckoner for all of you. Whenever you go and have a conversation with the government bodies. Because we are real estate people, I mean, we can't, it's very difficult for me to run away from broad real estate related figures. But just to set the context, and you've heard during the day talk about how we're experiencing a huge boom How big is that boom? So currently, if you look at the top 7 cities in the country, if you look at the co-location capacities, we're looking at about 680 megawatts order capacity. Some people debate the final number depending on whether the entire MW has been taken or just the IT load has been taken. But let's look at a figure of 680. Which is what we used, and we used the same calculation matrix for looking at the forecast. And then look at the bigger blue circle on the screen. There's an additional capacity expected of another 1100 to 1200 megawatts in the next 5 years. So when people said earlier that we expect this to grow, from 680 we expect it to reach 1200 odd. We tracked about 100 odd locations, co-location centers. This is not companies, but co-location data centers. We're not talking about companies, but actual buildings and areas. So, and they add up to about 9.2 million square feet. The interesting thing here is that 90% of the total installed capacity right now is restricted to the top 7 cities. And you can see the pie on the right, the donut on the right, where majority of that is in Mumbai or in Bangalore. And interestingly, while this figure is still being collated, what I can share with you very confidently is that this proportion will not remain the same 5 years from now. Yes, Mumbai will continue to have a good lead, but Hyderabad will pick up, Delhi will pick up, Chennai will pick up. And this will be slightly more evenly spread than just being limited to a couple of locations. So from 9.2 million square foot currently, we expect an addition of another 11 to 12 million square foot in the next 5 years. Now let's do a deep dive on the policy. When we spoke to you people in the data center space, we asked our questions in broad buckets. The buckets were regarding power, regarding development controls. I'm going to take up each bucket individually and share insights which we've collated from everybody, which I'm hoping would be interesting to you. So, what are your expectations on power? These are data that we are sharing with the government bodies. Now, one of the biggest thing is having dual power supply for 24/7 availability, which is a very obvious thing. Provision of electricity at subsidized rates has come up with most people. In fact, look at the third point. It's you guys are not just talking about it in conferences, you're talking it to us, and you're talking to the government as well, that at least 30 to 50% of electricity to be obtained through renewable sources, right? And probably provided at cost now. So this is something which is a ask that the data center space corporates have right now. Of course, looking at a power backup infrastructure at a subsidized rate, fuel rates to be lower than market prices, and even the whole talk that we are hearing from the government on data center parks, they should probably come with deemed power distribution license. So we don't have a good policy coming in, but the number of approvals increasing further. So that's another very good input that has come from the fraternity. The renewable power is something where, again, the suggestion that has come from the data center firms is that co-generation of power should be allowed. And a single window approval system usually is not a single window. I think the government has emphasized a lot on ease of doing business. The feedback that we get is that now the government should emphasize on speed of doing business. So this single window should really be single window, even for the renewable energy, and that ends up being a very, very clear demand of the data center firms. And then, of course, unrestricted banking and withdrawals of the energy, and 100% power, banking charges, transmission charges. These are all asks. Not every state government might be okay with it, but I think the first top 5 points are extremely critical on a sustainability standpoint. Now let's move on to the next bucket. This is on real estate, guys. Real estate is a component of your business. What happens on the land and the stamp duty? I'm not going to go on the states so much right now because this I'm going to talk about at the end. But the ask has been specifically on exemption of stamp duty. Many of the data centers that end up acquiring either large pieces of land, not all are looking at 4 to 10 acres. There are some people who are looking at larger firms as well, and that becomes a fairly large number. And even allow probably staggered payment on land procurement in case the location of the site makes the asset slightly expensive. So the government should be proactive in providing land in promoted industrial parks specifically for data centers. Everybody usually asks for a standard British stamp duty exemption. Might not happen. But the last fifth point is very important. Subleasing of land should be allowed, because if you get land from the government, it usually is a perpetual lease. And if you want to downstream give it to somebody else, you should be able to have a sublease element in that without any restrictions, without any approvals. And that should be built in when the land is given to a data center operator. Now let's look at building regulations. And I'm sure this is a pain point that many of you have grappled with in many cities, because data centers are still not recognized as a separate category in any of the building bylaws. In many states, office building norms are applied. In some cases, people want to go as per the IT or the industrial space, but that makes the whole process of going through approvals a bit challenging. So to make it simple, the suggestion is, and we've given it to several state governments and bodies, is to create a separate category for data centers with building regulations tailor-made for data centers. Now this would mean increased coverage, very different parking ratio, building height. Many of the norms end up saying anything over 3 meters ends up being not allowed, but here we know we need more than 3 meters height. And FSI, provision of additional FSI is another ask. Some people require it in your fraternity, some don't, but at no additional charge. That becomes a very important requirement. Parking, the very interesting thing was, in many states, people end up asking for removal of basement requirement for parking because data centers would not require it. But then the question was, what will be the parking norm for DCs? And the recommendation that has come from the DC fraternity is one parking space for about 100 square meter of designated office area. That's enough. We don't have to go for the multiple ECS that many of the building bylaws end up asking for in various states. Here's an interesting thing, and this is something which we've grappled with an assignment that we are working in one part of India. The question that one of our data center client asked us, can we do multi-level DG structure? And does India have a multi-level DG structure that one can refer to get approval locally? And this is something which we found difficult to get an example anywhere in the country. But this is an ask in a place like Mumbai, where land is a challenge. In other main city areas where things will come up. So multi-level DG structure is something which should become as a part of the development norms, and which is what we recommended to the government as well. And of course, allowing DCs to be set up in commercial buildings as well provides higher flexibility for people when they're going ahead with it. Now, just to, what are the other things that they're asking for? The good thing that the government white paper has already done is they recognize data centers as essential services. That was an ask of the body of the industry group as well, and that's kind of happening in the right direction. But it's very easy to say we'll set up dedicated DC parks, but the unique infrastructural requirements have to be met simultaneously. That's the feedback that we're hearing from the DC operators. The data center park should be provided by deemed power distribution license, something that I spoke about earlier, and the entire government machinery should be aware of the optic fiber requirements, the power supply requirements, the other prerequisites that data centers have in their site selection, and that should be taken care of. Another interesting suggestion that we've given is the process of a deemed approval. We have that in certain locations, we don't have it in certain locations, but to reduce the number of approvals, the ask of many people is, and I heard it at least 2-3 times in the sessions today, that we should reduce the number of approvals. The way to reduce the number of approvals is we should have a deemed approval process and have a genuine single window. It's not a single window for the sake of just submitting the documents, but somebody that then runs with it and makes sure it gets done. And probably have a nodal agency in charge of all the approvals for data centers done on a timely manner without complications. This is one suggestion that has come in, which we are trying to share. We don't know how much the government will agree and implement, but here's a thought that all of you should take whenever you're having conversations with government authorities or government bodies to improve the status quo. On my final slide, I want to then focus on power specifically, because we're talking about sustainability and where the things lie right now. So I've tried to summarize 5 key states who have talked about data centers and powers in some shape or form. So what we see is that we've got a very decent piecemeal approach. So some state has come up with some very good element, the other one has come up with another new feature. I think it's time now that all of us are talking about this to consolidate all of this in one and see if something similar can be done at a national level. So, for example, Telangana has a very good suggestion that 1/3 of the total power flow will be from renewable sources at cost. That's it's a very proactive step. Andhra Pradesh allows 100% banking of the energy to the extent of consumption of the data center. Haryana and a couple of other states have power subsidy for data centers specifically. I think the time has come for all these good best practices in various cities and states to be collated and then make it at a national level. Something that was done by the IT industry, 20 years ago, when a completely one consolidated deck was done, which was applicable across the country. A similar deck is an opportunity to prepare now, which will benefit the entire DC industry per se, and not just one particular state, city, or company. And I think that is what we are trying to work towards as an organization, as consultants who support data center asset class. And this is how we'll continue to work closely at the policy level to see what further improvements can be done as this space becomes more and more mature. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vivek, for your nice presentation. A lot of insights are with respect to the policy measures related to the data centers. Yes, as you have rightly mentioned, the energy-related policies, it makes a lot of difference in terms of investment in data centers in a particular state. So there is a need for a comprehensive approach with respect to the policy, especially on energy front. Thank you very much. We started receiving some of the questions for each of these presenters. So we will take up the questions a little later. Meanwhile, I would request all the audience to post their questions in the chat box so that we can take up at the end of the session. The next presenter is Mr. Sanjay Motwani. Mr. Sanjay Motwani, he is going to talk about the holistic approach for energy efficiency in data center. He's a vice president for Asia Pacific, and he's responsible for overall operations in the region. He's an industry leader with more than 30 years of experience, very extensive experience in the IT and telecom sectors across APAC as well as the Middle East. So he plays an active role in industry forums defining the shape of the industry, and has been a key speaker in multiple platforms, including Intra, Gartner, Data Center Dynamics, many other forums. So now may I request Mr. Sanjay Motwani, the business head of Legrand Data Center, to present his presentation. Over to you, Mr. Sanjay Motwani.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? It's the first question I ask these days.
Yes, very much, sir. We are unable to see you, but we are able to hear you well.
So I believe in doing step by step. So let's try and do the next step. If this is working, let's try and move to the video part. I shall start my video.
Yeah. You can share your presentation, sir.
Okay, can you see me? No, you still can't see me.
Still, we are unable to see you.
Okay, well, let me start by at least sharing my presentation.
Sharing your presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, we are able to see your slides. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so there is some challenge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this background. Can you see me now?
None. That is better, sir. Yes.
Okay, so let's start with this, and you can see my screen as well.
Yes. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so when I was given this topic of holistic approach for efficiency in data centers, the challenge was, I was taken immediately back to my school days before exams. The topic is so big, there are too many points to be covered, and I always refer to in my exams, I was always somebody who never had the syllabus or the books. So I was always referred to something like a kunji or a key to get through the exams. So it's with that mindset I said, okay, this is a 15, 20-minute presentation, and I have to try and pack in as much as I can. So this is more like in that context, which I have approached this. Having said that, we are a nation and believers in astrology, and we love to go to astrologers. And we love to go to astrologers for various Janam-patris and whatever. But the important thing to understand in astrology is precise date and time of birth, location, etc., and the location of the planets. Very important to get the right readings and the right forecast. However, having said that, in data centers, while our expectation is that we want precise forecasts and the best of everything, but in terms of our approach, it's more like going to an alternative forecasting methodologies, alternative ways of trying to get the best results. And this is both I've seen over the years as to how data centers have been spending for money for whatever reasons, but that's been the approach. And the criticality of how to collect data in the design aspects to improve the efficiency is so critical, which is why I thought of bringing up this example. I have structured the presentation into two broad categories: design considerations and equipment considerations. As far as the design is concerned, I am excluding the building design elements, which is far more complicated and is region specific. So I'm leaving that aside, but I'm looking at some very macro level design considerations, which we need to look at. But before we get into design considerations specifically, let's understand how do you decide a capacity and load in a data center. The capacity or the load bearing this thing in a data center is based on the nameplate rating of the equipment which is to be deployed. Typically, you look at 1,000 servers, each server 1 kV, you say 1,000 kV, and that typically defines the IT load. Based on the IT load, the air conditioning load is computed either as to 1:1 or 1:1.5, depending upon what methodologies the team is following. Based on that, the UPS load, based on that, the generator load is decided. And this IT load plus AC load constitutes about 98% of the total load, leaving aside the electrical charges. Our belief over the years has been that it's the cooling which consumes a lot of power, electricity, and over the years, a lot of effort has gone into improving the cooling side and trying to get the maximum efficiencies on the cooling side. But the reality is, it is the IT equipment which consumes maximum power in a data center. It consumes nearly for 50%. And because it constitutes 50% of the power, it's important for us to understand how our equipment is behaving and how our equipment needs to be monitored. There was a talk earlier when we talked about the rack index. I would like to take that further down to look at the device level index rather than the rack level index. And let's understand why. Nameplate rating, when we look at it, we've done studies and it shows that the average consumption typically is about 39% of the nameplate rating, and at the average maximum consumption is about 48%. This means that the peak draw is about maximum, let's say if you round it off to 50%, that means there is excess capacity of 50% of power which is floating in the system. And because the infrastructure has been designed based on the nameplate rating, there is excess capacity which is available on the cooling side, excess on the UPS side, at least in the range of 40 to 50%. Once you start understanding how the equipment is trying to consume power, you would also get insights into which are the underutilized and overutilized servers in a data center. And this has a huge bearing on power consumption as well. Now let's look at how this happens. This example shows over here the power consumption at various CPU utilization. It goes from 0% to 100%, from here to here, and this is the power load on the x-axis. So I have taken 4 points in between. Our belief is that at idle capacity, typically a server would consume very little power, but the reality is it does consume a substantial amount of power and more than 50% of its peak rated power at 100%. At 30%, it's 210, 60, 240, 100, 275. Now, most servers for in data centers today operate in the range of 30 to 40% CPU utilization, purely on the case of business continuity. And the reason why the IT team does this is because they do not have enough data to feel confident enough to scale up the CPU utilization. Now let's look at the fact. If two servers at 30% are using 420 watts, it's nothing but 210 into 2. But one server at 60% uses 240 watts. That means if you were to combine two servers, put the load into one server, you save 180 watts, which is nearly 45% of the saving. But unfortunately, most data centers are not doing device level measurement or monitoring to understand how their servers or equipment is behaving, which is why they are not having the confidence to be able to do these kind of changes or make these migrations. Hence, one of the first points to measure on the design factor is measure power at the device level. Second, we need to look at taking three-phase power to the rack. Now, if you look at in this load, the green side over here is all single phase, and this is all three-phase. A single phase, most data centers have been operating at about 3.744 kilowatts, but now I'm moving into 7.4 to 5. But when you look at the service providers like the STT or the NTT, they have started operating in the range of about 12 kilowatts per rack. Now, when you design data centers by taking single phase to the rack, what's happening is, A, you are limiting yourself in terms of the number of servers over here, plus you are not leaving yourself room for expansion tomorrow within the same rack. So if you analyze the data and observe what's happening within a rack, you will find in some places the rack has got either excess power or it has got space. But because there is no clear indication as to how much power is consumed and how much power is available, there is a mismatch, and you end up wasting both space and power, which has been pre-allocated at the rack level. The other thing which we have to understand is when you go from single phase to three phase, you are reducing your transmission losses. Plus, when you deploy a three phase, the cost of copper deployed is far less. So in the long term, when you look at the life cycle of a data center, which is typically 7 to 10 years, you will save far more money even in the cost of the copper and deployment. And this also allows the flexibility to a data center to scale up as and when they want. Hence, the number 2 design consideration is taking three phase to the rack. The interesting point is some people ask is when you've taken three phase, but the devices are single phase, what you need to deploy is an intelligent rack PDU, which takes three phase, but gives you an output of a single phase. Third point, let's look at the scenario in a data center where you've got 8 racks, average load capacity is about 3.5 kilowatts. And today, what's happening is that the cost of real estate is going up. And when it's a fixed investment which you are incurring per rack over here, how do you maximize an investment? And when do you want to scale? You do not have to necessarily go horizontal. The thought process is we need to go vertical. And the idea is you increase from 3.5 to 7.5. This is again using three phase to the rack. You are able to space nearly 50% of the space, and which you can reutilize for additional expansions at a later date. So the third element in keeping in mind is you plan for vertical growth, and you plan for racks with 1,500 kilograms of load bearing capacity and not only 1,000 kilograms. Don't look at 42U, look at 48U, look at 52U in terms of your planning. Raised floors. This is how most of the cooling, most of the cabling is done in terms of power provisioning, and all the cables go from below. And it's the same way the air also flows for cooling purposes. Now, if you can look into this diagram, you'll see a lot of chaos which is happening below the floor. And even in terms of maintenance, if there is a problem, trying to troubleshoot here and fix it is a mess. So the suggestion here is, and it's a very strong suggestion, especially for data centers which have 50 racks and more, is to go for bus bars. Even if you don't have 50 racks and you're less and there are cost constraints, look at taking overhead transmission as far as power is concerned. Okay, so as far as the number 4 design consideration is concerned, it's overhead power distribution and not below the floor. Now let's look at equipment considerations. Now, there's lots of equipment which goes in the data center, both in the gray space as well as the white space. I've taken some critical points and I'm trying to cover. Hopefully, it will give you a direction as to how to look at the equipment at a very broad level. Now let's look at transformers. Transformers need to be of the dry type. They have to be close to the data center, as close as they are possible to the data center. You are reducing transmission losses. And if there's a provision, and ideally if they can provide forced air cooling in and around the transformer, then the efficiency of the transformer increases drastically. When you're looking at UPSs, today's environment is a very dynamic environment whereby the data centers need to be able to scale up quickly as and when they want. While globally, one has observed that everybody has gone in for modular UPSs, but the adoption of modular UPS in India is far less. We are still going in for monolithic UPSs. That has its own advantages, but in a dynamic environment, one needs to look at modular, scalable UPSs, and one should look at UPSs which have or which achieve a peak efficiency at about 40% load. Because if normally UPSs achieve peak efficiencies at 70, 80% of load capacities, but there are UPSs available today which will give you peak efficiency at nearly 40% of load capacity. 80–90% of the time when I visited data centers, all data centers have black racks. And the first thing we learn in school in physics is black absorbs heat. So why do you have black racks in a data center? It's simple. We need to deploy light colored racks. They absorb less heat, creates a more brighter environment. And more importantly, we need to have racks with air ducting accessories and airtight, because at the end of the day, the cooling is happening in and around the rack. And the airflow within a rack is very, very critical. So they have to be airtight, and they have to ensure that the airflow movement is controlled in and around the rack. Power distribution units. As far as these are concerned, most organizations or data centers till quite some time back viewed it as just an extension of a power distribution cord, which we have a board which we had at home. But today, the role which an intelligent power distribution unit or a PDU plays is vital to the data center. It becomes the basis on which you can understand what's happening in your data center. So it's very, very important to deploy intelligent PDUs, which are outlet metered, which will therefore allow you to measure what's happening at the device level, which are programmable, so that you can set your thresholds and what you want. So there are multiple options available on this, but it's something very, very critical to a data center. As far as cooling is concerned, I'm not going to get into various technologies of chiller, air-based, water-based. I mean, there are enough topics during the next 1.5 days to cover those. I'm only trying to focus here on the airflow management, which happens, and the importance of even containment. The graphs over here on the right, the colored ones over here, you see, this is an actual case study we've just completed about 2 weeks back for a data center. This shows on the left-hand side is the front aisle, is the front of the rack. On the right-hand side is the back. This shows what is happening before containment and after containment. So if you look at the back of the rack, it's touching nearly 49 degrees centigrade. And in the front, it's nearly 30 degrees centigrade. Now that's the status. And this is when you're measuring at the top part of the rack, which is why the recommendations, even if you went to look at ASHRAE's recommendations, they always say measure your rack at 3 levels, a top, middle, and bottom. And it's always the top because hot air rises. It's very, very important to understand what's happening at the top so that the equipment at the top is not at risk. And once the containment was done, there was an immediate drop in temperature of about 14% in the front and about 11% at the back. So just trying to control and manage the air within the data center becomes very critical. If you look at the data centers today, very few data centers, I would say less than 20%, have containment within their data centers. So this is very, very critical to do that. And this can be done at any point, retrofit, etc. So it's nothing, too complicated to deploy.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Sanjay. You have two more minutes. You have 2 more minutes, please.
Thank you. Monitoring, we've talked about this. Other speakers have spoken about this. You need to monitor everything as much as possible. DCI monitoring tools, again, very important to understand what's happening in your data. If you're not able to monitor, you will not be able to manage. Slide on the ground as a group level, we are present across the world. We have got about $6.5 billion in revenue. In India, we are equally strong with nearly $300 million in revenue. And as far as the data center is concerned, we have these brands which are mentioned over here, which are the best in breed. And the philosophy which we go by is designed for agility, because that's the need of the hour today. I will try and skip this in terms of this is the summary of what I have spoken so far. And I would just like to leave you with this thought that the data centers that were lost are the ones which are built for change. And that's important because the world outside is changing dynamically. Data being processed, need, etc., is growing at a rapid pace. Data centers need to expand. So that's what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjeev Motwani. Actually, you have addressed the energy efficiency by addressing the basics of the engineering. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next presenter is Mr. Suresh Kumar Rathod. He is a president of co-location business from Controllers Data Centers Limited. Mr. Rathod is a president sales co-location business of Controllers DC, has more than 25 years of experience in enterprise sales, pre-sales, customer operations. He has been instrumental in forging very large and strategic deals with the Indian and multinational customers for Controllers. He has a bachelor's degree in engineering from Mumbai University and also an MBA from Symbiosis Pune. So over to you, Mr. Rathod. We would like to listen to you from sustainable intervention, from the point of view of sustainable interventions in data centers. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Karthikeyan. Just to check whether my audio is good enough.
Absolutely fine, sir. Absolutely fine.
And I would also like to share my screen. I'm sure I'm visible as well.
Yes.
I like to share my screen. There is some... I'm facing some challenge in sharing, though I can start speaking, but the screen which I want to share.
Yeah, you have shared a screen, but
my own video, right?
No, it is email. You can share the presentation.
Yeah, I'm finding just a minute. I'm not sure what's happening.
Mr. Suresh, if you find difficulty, we have your presentation. Shall we set the screen?
Yeah, if you can set the screen, I think it'll be good, because I think I'm finding some problem in sharing my screen. So I think
just a moment.
So good evening, all of you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present sustainability in data center. As generally, the last speaker always has a tough time because either most of the audience has.
No, sir. We have another session after this, so you are not the last.
Last speaker in this particular session, and generally, physical conferences also, I have seen the last speaker has the least audience. I hope the audience are still intact and they are all in a listening mode. And I'm quite confident that I will not disappoint any of them and do justice to the entire conversation for which all of you have assembled here. I'm sure with the earlier speaker, all of you have noticed that data center industry in India is poised for a very, very, very rapid growth. I'm still not able to see the screen. If you have already shared the screen, I'm not able to see the screen. Just to give you a perspective, we are the second largest mobile users in the world. We are the highest data user in the world. We use close to around 18 GB a month, which is by far the highest data in the world. And still, our data center footprint, if you compare with the US market, is just around cumulatively across all service providers is 7-8 million square feet versus 2 billion square feet in US alone. So there's a tremendous growth opportunity, and thankfully, the government of India has realized this long time back and was pushing renewable energy charter, whether it is solar, whether it is wind and other fossil and various other sources of renewable energy. So I think from all other perspective, we are definitely looking good from a renewable energy perspective. Shivraji, आप try कर रहे हैं, but I'm not able to still see my screen. You want me to try once again from my side? Okay, so I'll give you also one more perspective. If you see globally in 2019, data center consumed around 1% of the global power. It means around 200 terawatt hour that we use. One more perspective I wanted to give is that we all know that airlines industry consume the highest amount of fuel, and which is not so good for the environment. But data center is not less. Data center emits an equal amount of carbon dioxide as the airline industry. Estimates suggest that annual electricity demand from data center could go to as high as 8,000 terawatt hour by 2030. That's the conservative estimate, and if it goes all well with a 26% year-on-year expansion, as in our country, it could go to 1,100. Now, all other companies like Google, etc., has announced that Google, Amazon, Microsoft, all large hyperscaler as well as large banks and large enterprises, all of them have a charter of green initiative. And as a data center industry, we have to work with them to ensure that they achieve their green energy initiative. And at the same time, overall, it helps the controllers kind of organization or the data center industries to have a renewable charter in place and start working towards it. Shivraji, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, if you noticed here, Controllers has been awarded the Golden Peacock Award. Now, Golden Peacock Award is awarded in innovations in energy efficiencies. Controllers has also been winner of CII awards for energy optimization and efficiency in usage of energy for last 10 years. I think except 1 year in between where we did not participate, another 9 years we got this award continuously, which is a testimonial that controllers data centers uses the energy more efficiently. Also, data center in India, most of the data center, because of the capex constraint and the realization what they can get from their customers, because customers generally look for value for money options most of the time in India, and due to capex constraint, opt for tier 3 kind of data center. Controllers has always gone for all their data center redundant power infrastructure, though it involves almost 25 to 30% extra capex, but it gives a concurrently maintainable systems. All our data center for last 13 years have seen zero downtime, though we would have changed the entire equipment chain right from transformers to the PDU, but without impacting the clients, because that's the power of creating a complete redundant, because it gives you a foolproof, concurrently maintainable, fault-tolerant data center. Because imagine a 2-minute downtime in a data center of a bank can lead to at least 6 hours of downtime overall. Because if your database is reboots, you never know whether it will come up in the same original form. You're not sure. So hence the uptime in data center is important along with the energy conservation. Next slide, please. So this is the Golden Peacock Award. We were really honored and privileged to get it from His Highness Sri Venkaiah Naidu, Vice President of India, and Sri Piyush Goyal, Cabinet Minister of various portfolios. Next slide, please. Okay, if you see this slide, wherein we have said controllers innovation. Now, what are the various innovations we have done? We offer the lowest PUE. Now, everybody in data center industry, that cooling energy invested or energy consumed by cooling is actually a waste. If we can design a PUE of 1, that will be the best what we can achieve. but that's impossible, because every equipment, if it gets heated up, it needs to be cooled, and anything which needs to be cooled will consume energy. Control Edge Data Center has designed all their data center at the lowest PUE of 1.36. It alone eliminated carbon emission equivalent to 46,000 metric tons. Now that's a huge number for a 50-60 megawatt operational capability. Just capacity. Just imagine when it multiplies 10 times in another 4 years. That's the plan, by the way. Controllers will go from its current capacity. We have 2 large campuses. Work has started in both of these days. Mumbai campus, which is a large DC campus. The first phase of that campus is getting launched in January 2021, and another second phase is getting launched in September 2021. Our Hyderabad campus, again a 300 megawatt campus, the work has started. So the point what I'm trying to make is even designing and running the data center on efficient PUE can lead to a huge amount of energy saving and the carbon emission saving. Recycle almost 29,000 metric tons of waste over last few years. Next, now I'm going to talk about the green initiative, what Controllers has taken. And we have taken a full advantage of innovations in various IT related sectors. We have complete system which is zero human intervention data center. We call it as ZHI. Artificial intelligence driven variable cooling plants. All of us discuss about maintaining the cooling, but if it left to either the manual operator or to an automated system, it may not yield the full result. And hence, we have gone for AI-driven variable cooling plants. In entire operation, we are using robotic process automation, RPA. In fact, recently we acquired a RPA company as well, which was acquired in 2019, not to use RPA in our cloud automation, etc., but also in data center operation. IoT, sensors, and machine learning enabled data center, smart driven data centers. I would request you to go to the next slide. Now, these are the various initiatives through which Controllers Data Center wants to do its bit for environment. Now, obviously, this kind of why I'm sharing this initiative on this forum is because most of the audience would be from a technology field and they would have implemented various factors. Now, these are the few more things which can add to their knowledge kitty, which they can implement to overall reduce the carbon footprint for our country. Another initiative is what we are taking. If you see the screen, initiative putting controllers ahead of competition. We have quick start and low IGBO chillers, which are used for efficient cooling. We use a very early smoke detection and eco-friendly gas separation system used for DC halls. Hot aisle and cold aisle segregation, obviously it is done by everybody, but we do it with the blanking panel and so efficiently that we could run the data center, some of the server hall at the temperature of 28 as well, Though some of the customers don't agree, and we have to sometimes be flexible to their demands if it is their dedicated server hall. But we have run the data center at 28 degrees as well to further optimize the energy consumption. Adopted green energy data center designs in building, right from building from blocks which are made of fly ash. These are low emission again. Low load losses of transformers in PDU is the selection. In fact, most of the UPSs also we select is a 100% efficient UPSs. Intelligent BCPMs to monitor each and every rack power consumption so that the cooling at the rack level also can be efficiently monitored. Dual screen wall for less thermal losses, and VFD, which has variable system, are in place for all the AHUs, primary, secondary, and condenser pumps to reduce the energy consumption. So these are the various initiatives we are taking, and what are the various factors which could lead for a total variable cooling plant over a winning proposition: energy reduction, energy efficiency, toxicity reduction, and then sustainability. Now, each of these topics has its own half an hour, at least a half an hour discussion. Having a time constraint of 10 minutes, I've just touched upon the topic that these are the 3 factors which are taken care while designing a data center. And we are also happy to announce that all our data centers are designed by our in-house team. Now, as you know, If you want to have a good orchestra, all has to be a team. It has to be a team player, and each team has to trust the other one. Violin has to trust the dholak guy that yes, he is playing the right and all the stuff. So when you have an inbuilt in-house design team, in-house operation team, program management team is in-house, entire construction and execution is done by the team. Yes, on various level we take peer reviews, but most of the things are done in-house. Now that gives us 3-4 important things. One is time to execute the project. A large scale project of 12-story in Bombay we've completed in 9 months. Now that's the achievement. 12-story building, the entire civil was done just in 4 months. Prefab structure is what we put. So when you have the team which are working cohesively, it gives you a lot of advantage. Hot tile, cold tile is obviously segregated very clearly. Now I will tell you about what kind of effort we give in choosing the right equipment. Choosing the right equipment again has a very high impact on your data center power efficiency. To choose the best IKW per TR systems. Not only that consists of entire chiller, pumps, Pahu machines, cooling towers with the lowest possible energy consumption. Now here you may pay slightly more initially, but from a longer term perspective, you save a lot of energy. Now cooling, provide water cooled chiller system instead of air cooled. Now all our data centers are water cooled. Selecting higher chilled water leaving temperature to increase chiller efficiency. Provide thermal zoning in server rooms with large cold aisle. Providing ceiling void as return air plenum for laminar airflow for better energy efficiency. Using FRP cooling tower blade for better efficiency. Selecting high approach cooling tower to save powers. Providing highly energy efficient centrifugal chillers with VSD to reduce the IKW per TR value on part load, providing VFD based pumps for all variable load applications in the facility. Now these, I can go on talking about these. Obviously if you have any more questions, we have a question and answer session. I will also request organizers to share my email ID with all the audiences in case you have more questions on what are the various ways more efficient cooling can be achieved. Happy to answer all of them. In fact, the purpose and the reason we also have a data center build practice is to help the national important institutions. So we don't aggressively go and select our data center build project, but only of national importance companies like National Stock Exchange, Bombay Stock Exchange, NSDL, ONGCs, NatGrid. These are the only organization for which we have done the data center build. The reason is they are all national important organization, and we have the moral and ethical responsibility to help these institutions to share our knowledge which we have learned hard way in last 13 years. Similarly, power, we use LED based lighting wherever continuous lighting is required, providing high efficiently UPS system with pure IGBT technologies to improve power factors and save power, providing highly efficient isolation transformer, implementing occupancy sensor based lighting system in DC to have need-based lighting, providing bus bar trunking to reduce the power. Earlier, Sanjay also spoke about instead of using the cable and all, you should use for bus bar. So these are technologies which we are using for last 13 years. Now, if you see India's largest BIBP plant, now what is this? We have done one more experiment in our Mumbai data center. Entire building we have enveloped with a solar plant. Now, it's a good looking facade, but they are all solar panel. It generates almost 1 megawatt of energy. Every energy saved is absolutely fine. It looks good, it saves energy, and it's an experiment. Probably most of the office building can go for this kind of data center. 1 megawatt is nothing, but for office building, 1 megawatt could be a substantial power which they can use to reduce their cost as well as add to the energy conservation. All of us agree that solar is the way ahead. Every organization has a charter. Controllers has embarked on a journey to put up a dedicated solar plant. Our solar plant is coming in interior of Maharashtra. That's the first phase of 50 megawatt work has started, which will expand to 200 megawatt in next couple of years' time. So as a responsible company, we have a clear direction from Mr. Sridhar Reddy, our founder chairman, to go and do whatever is required to save carbon footprint, be as environmental friendly as possible, be as efficient in energy consumption as possible. So Control S currently runs 6 data centers in 4 cities, and our 2 large campuses are coming in Hyderabad and Mumbai. All our data centers are rated 4. We currently operate more than 70 banks with us. Some of the large hyperscaler take our services. In and all, Control S data center is a responsible, and growth rate is also good, with a very stable and good team. That's all from my side. If you have any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh Kumar Rathod, for sharing the experience of Control S in terms of implementing the sustainable measures in your own data centers. Obviously, all the measures, the benefits of the measures would go to the end users as well. We have received a few questions. There is a question from one of the participants asking, can you load the user guide of implementing ECBC in data centers? Yes, the user guide is available. We would share the user guide separately with you all. All the participants can get the user guide. Second, this is a question directed to Mr. Sanjay Motwani. What is the most economic deployment of the racks, I think? Is it either horizontal or vertical deployment? Mr. Sanjay Motwani, the question to you.
Yes. You have to consider the lifespan of a data center. And when you're looking at the lifespan of a data center, which is anywhere between 7 to 10 years, in the long term, it's the vertical deployment which is economical, though in the first 2 or 3 years, you may feel it is not giving you its return. But when you do your calculations, you would realize the vertical data center planning is far better and economical in the long term. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, the next question is also directed to you, Mr. Sanjay. Somebody is asking a question on the airflow direction. What is preferred, whether it is top to bottom or bottom to top?
It is, okay, so when you're trying to talk about airflow management or airflow control, first of all, especially the example which I shared, it was basically the airflow, the air is controlled. You have hot aisles and cold aisles. The cold aisle is typically the front side of the computer racks. So you try and control the air, the cold aisle, and the air flows from the front of the rack to the back of the rack. And in a raised floor environment, the air is coming from under the floor, rising up, and it's being going from the front of the rack and moving from the back. So that's how the airflow moves, and you try and control the cold aisle in a cold aisle environment so that you do not have temperature drops quickly.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sanjay. I think this is the question directed to Mr. Suresh Kumar. Somebody is asking about what is the total capacity of energy consumption in terms of megawatt of Control S.
Currently, we are operating cumulatively across all our geographies is around 90-95 megawatt.
90 to 95 megawatt. I think that's all. Those are the questions we have received from the. Another question is coming from Mr. Rathod again. 12 floors of data centers. How many square feet in Mumbai did in 9 months? So he just want to understand. The time period for completion of the data center. You have mentioned about this data center in Mumbai.
Yeah, so actually the civil portion of it, which is 12-story building, comprises of 1.5 lakh square feet of carpet area. The civil was completed in just 4 months. 9 months was complete data center fit out with all amenities, raised floor, all mechanical, electrical, BMS system, etc., and handing over to client.
Yeah, I think one Mr. Chilukuri, he has been repeatedly asking multiple questions. How do you arrive at the lifespan of data center? Many data centers are more than 10 years of old. I think, Mr. Sanjay, you mentioned about the lifespan of the data center.
No, even I could answer, Mr. Karthikeyan.
Yeah, please, sir.
Professor, thank you very much for bringing this up. Now, this is a really interesting question and very important for this forum also to know. As all of us know, a real estate building, when we construct a building and we estimate the lifetime of a building to be minimum 50 years and more. Now, life of a data center also has to be as equivalent to a civil building. Unfortunately, what used to happen in tier 3 kind of environment in data center, when customers have occupied the data center and you want to upgrade any of your electrical systems, you want a downtime from the customers, but customers will not give you downtime because each customer's downtime window will be different. MNC customer will give you, I don't know when, Saturday, Sunday. Some banks will never give you downtime. So hence, those data centers will die its natural death in 10 to 12 years because provider, even if they wish, they can't do anything because they don't get a downtime. But rated 4, completely redundant, fault tolerant system, without even going to customer, can change any of these electrical and mechanical equipment, and hence these rated 4 data centers life would be as good as the civil infrastructure life. So it can extend up to 50, 60, 70 years as well.
There is a question related to the PUE. Probably I would request Mr. Sanjay Mutwane to answer this question. In rack cooling and the embedded cooling, what is the best PUE that could be achieved? Is there any case study available?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
In rack cooling and the embedded cooling, he's talking about embedded cooling. What is the best PUE that can be achieved?
Okay, so we've done very close work with eBay data centers at a global scale. And eBay has achieved 1.1, what to be precise, it was 1.13 PUE. And this was done nearly 4 or 5 years back. So, so that is what can be achieved.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I think there are a few more questions. Probably want of time, we would like to close the session because the next session has to start. So from IGBC, we thank all the panelists, Mr. Vivek Dahiya, Mr. Sanjay Mutwane, Mr. Suresh Kumar Atul, for their presentations and time to share their knowledge and wisdom in this regard. Thank you, sir. Thank you all for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Vivek, Sanjay. It was a really good session. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.